Lawmakers are looking ahead at funding to hire teachers, buy computers, and add new programs. And tonight we're taking a closer look at how our tax dollars are being distributed for education. State Superintendent Molly Spearman says it's time to rework the funding formula. She says the Education Finance Act of 1977 worked well based on the textile economy back then, but now it's time to make some changes.
As Fox Carolina's Margaret Burnquist reports, some districts in lesser populated parts of the state with a smaller tax base believe the current funding formula is failing.
We couldn't possibly explain the intricacies of the funding formula during the course of this broadcast, and everyone would probably tune out if we tried. But overall, your child's school is funded 70% by the state and 30% by the local tax base. That local tax portion can be a problem for areas without as much industry, because without a strong local tax base, it can be hard for some districts in rural areas to make ends meet. Woodruff, South Carolina was a community of textile mills. But in the 80s, that industry was coming to a close. And with that went the thriving tax base that was sufficiently funding the local schools.
Prior to that, it was a strong textile community, thriving community. And so we've been in transition all this time, and now we're moved to you see neighborhoods are popping up all over the place. Spartanburg District 4 Superintendent Dr. Raleigh Liston believes Woodruff is prime for tremendous growth. But even with new neighborhoods being developed, which increase his student enrollment, he says his district doesn't see more funding. We're the 11th lowest of 85 districts in what we spend per pupil. 11th. And people will say, oh, you're in Spartanburg. But no, it doesn't work that way. We live off of our tax base. One problem he identifies is Act 388, South Carolina's property tax reform measure. It exempts owner-occupied residential properties from paying property taxes for school operations. Dr. Liston says that shifts the tax burden to business properties. Now you have small businesses, and with the current finance model, they are burdened tremendously, but we don't have enough support financially compared to 30, 40 years ago. But for every rural district that might like to see a change in the funding formula that benefits them, there are larger city districts that wouldn't want to be negatively impacted. Every district's got a different challenge, and so there's a big back and forth tug of war between how does my district get more money and how does it look like I'm not hurting you in the meantime. Representative Bruce Bannister, who serves District 24 Greenville, says there's no one easy fix for the education funding formula. There have been different ideas. Some is sort of like a base, hey, we're going to give each school district a certain amount of money to operate. There's been sort of the harsher critics who say you don't need a high school for 100 kids. You need to get rid of that high school and make them go and combine some of those high schools, even if it requires a longer bus ride. Consolidation has been discussed as a possible solution for the lesser populated school districts statewide. But Dr. Liston says that may not be the right fit for Spartanburg District 4 and the town of Woodruff. Nobody wants to consolidate with us. It would cost them money. So we're not quite fitting into that model. We're fairly efficient. We're performing well. Could we do better? Do our students deserve more? Absolutely. I'm holding the proposed funding model that was released by the Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office. It focuses on student-to-staff ratios, so it would allocate funding based on what services students need and how many staff members are required to provide those services. Representative Bannister says economic experts are still having meetings, working with educators, and crunching the numbers before they can write up the specific options for a bill to be considered by the legislature in January. Margaret Burnquist, Fox Carolina News.